could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You could have all you ever wanted, shoot the moon and reach for Mars. You know you could. Yeah, and times are changing everywhere. Do we dream and do we dare? It's up to you, the door is open wide. Feel the rhythm of today, learn the part and join the play. The world is here, let's take it for a ride. You could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You could have all you ever wanted, shoot the moon and reach for Mars. You know you could. Larger, larger than, bigger, bigger than, living hopes and dreams. Every boy and girl, higher, higher than, brighter, brighter than, all you wanted. You know, you could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You can have all you ever wanted. Hopes and dreams, every boy. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You can have all you ever wanted. You know you could.
Good morning and welcome back to the channel Grand Colombia, and welcome to another Coffee Time Live here in Armenia, Colombia. Did I get that right? So we got a lot to do today. We got a lot to talk about, a lot of little different topics. I'll try to bullet point them. Right now, it's pretty cool. We actually had an unusual morning rain. It's about 74 degrees. Supposedly, we're going to have a high around 78. Not sure if we'll quite get to it. We'll have a low about 5 or 6 in the morning of 62 degrees. And the Colombian peso keeps bouncing around a little bit. And right now, it's 39.53 today. So that's okay. Last week, I mentioned sun flares as I went off on one of my rants. And one of my things for years have been looking at
something. Can you say it again?
Somebody is speaking up. Starts with an A and ends with an I, and Google is listening to everything.
This is a life-threatening situation. Please dial emergency.
Oh my God! Let me turn her off. Yes, this is a life-threatening situation. So anyway, I mentioned sun flares. I guess we're not supposed to. Google will hear you. And I noticed in the news yesterday, I think it was, or maybe the day before, that cell service all across the United States was interrupted, was down. And I saw some headlines. AT&T said it was some software update, except it happened with all the cell services. It wasn't some AT&T thing. And at the same time, well, actually a little bit sooner, because it needs time to get here, there was a category sun flare aimed right at the United States that went off. And this is what I was telling you. I don't know why they're not really talking about it. Maybe they are now. I looked yesterday and they were talking about hackers and software and all of this stuff, and it doesn't really work like anyway. Don't be surprised if you see more of this, because we're going through a period of activity with the sun. and we will see more repercussions from it than historically, simply because we have exponentially greater amounts of electronics that are affected by it, and it's never built in to protect it. So I guess that'll fall under the yeah, I told you so. Okay, let's see. We had contribution from Juka early this morning. Thank you very much. Mr. Anonymous Jerry, thank you very much. Like clockwork, don't think it's not appreciated. It is greatly appreciated, and I know sometimes I gush on and on about it, but it's because it always makes a big difference. Rob, good morning from Fort Lauderdale, 439 days. I don't know if I'll be alive to see that. That's like, what is that in dog years? I don't know. That's crazy to me. Mr. Suwicki, good morning from Seattle. How you doing? Mike Jarvis, La Pavona here. I don't know if I'd brag about that. Vija Liliana all the way. Michael Meyer, good morning from Los Angeles. How you doing? It's nice to see Los Angeles is still standing. Sebastian, I'll see you on the 2nd, and thank you. Turtle, good morning from Socorro, Santander. They've been having a lot of little earthquakes. I forgot to message you and ask you. They've had like not big ones, like category or 4.5, something like that. But they had like over the course of a couple days, they had I think they had 4 of them. I get a message on my phone whenever there is one, and we don't feel it here, but you must be feeling it. Judy, good morning from Texas. How you doing? Ben Lake, that name cracks me up. Wendia, William Hutchinson, my hero. Thank you for everything, and good morning. Okay. All right, next. Turtle, I have felt nothing here. Interesting. A couple of them are right down the street from you. Morning, what do you think about buying land in Colombia? Could be a good idea, could be a bad idea. Bring it up after I cover the topics when we go to the Q&A part, and I can talk about that. Okay, first of all, I'm going to cover just some things here pertaining to what goes on here. Then I got 4 news headlines to talk about. And then I'm going to talk about taxis for a little while. First thing, a coffee meeting. I tell you guys about it. I bring it up all the time because if you're visiting, you may want to schedule that in. It's maybe a good way to meet some people. I went this last Wednesday, and I was the only one there. And that's only the second time. Usually people kind of wander in, and we end up, I think on average, about 6 or 7 people. This was one of them. Kind of typical. But we're not going to be there this coming Wednesday. We're going to be at Private. I could say it to the taxi driver. Priva Helio Mall, Privilege Mall, Privilegio Mall. That's it. So we're going to be there for the next meeting. I got a minute little clip where I did a quick walkthrough. The coffee is one of the kiosks, but they've got pretty good coffee. I mean, it's not just like truck stop coffee. It's actual cafe coffee. So let me show you that. Privilegio. Renee, saludos from Brussels. How you doing? You're not going to control me. I'm not going globalist. Gill Girls, good morning from Turlock, California. Howdy.
Yeah.
This is 2 or 3 blocks north of the Candio Mall, and it's directly across the street from the little military battalion where they have a couple of helicopters. This was early. Oh yeah, there's a Davi Vienda ATM there. This was early, so a lot of things didn't open up. I hung around for a little bit, and everything started opening up, I think around noon. And right there is a coffee kiosk. So we'll come in and kind of sit down at 11 o'clock to 12. It's like this right here, pretty quiet, so it should be fine. I'm mostly having it here for people that aren't aware that this exists, because there's a couple little restaurant places that are excellent, particularly the one called Vertical. If you like any kind of crispy pork, it's the place to go. You can see it there in the yellow. Alitas and mas. Wings and more. All right, I'm bored with the clip. You bored with it? Let's end that clip. Nino's Pizza. Okay. What do I got next? Oh, car loan. So I got a bit of a dilemma. I'm not sure what to do. When people come here and they hire me to do certain things, I have to rent a car. It's some of you know the story. I put up on my personal channel, but these days I have to rent a car. And the problem is this year, car rentals have become very, very expensive. And it's killing me. So I've renewed my efforts. Before it was more for information, but now I really should get a car. It will actually be money ahead to have a car loan than to pay what it costs for renting cars these days. You know, plus they used to get protection with it. Now you got to pay extra for that. You automatically get cleaning fees that you have to pay for. Before you just had to return it clean. It's kind of turned into a scam. So checked with different places, and technically I got approved at 7 different places. New car, used car. They have used cars as low as like 62 million, which is about $15,000. Some pretty nice ones, like you can get a Volkswagen, you can get a Kia, and then a used car, $8,000 to $10,000 will get you one just maybe a year or two old with very low mileage. So it doesn't have to be real expensive. And like I say, technically I got approved at 7 different locations, dealers and things like, well, they're all dealers of one sort or another, new or used, except, and this turns out, I wasn't aware, they change these laws all the time, particularly banking laws. But in order to finalize the car loan, I have to actually have my direct deposit be deposited here in Colombia directly. Now, I thought, well, you know, that's okay, because I take the cash and I put it in the bank every month, same time, and going back to the middle of last year, I can show deposits like clockwork, you know, for the good amount. But they won't accept that. It has to actually be deposited. And the problem with that is once I do that, then it will notify Social Security that I have officially moved here instead of being in the status of extended vacation or whatever. And once you do that, you have to file the document for proof of life. So every year I got to go get this done. So it doesn't sound like it should be a big deal, but it kind of is. And I'm telling you about this so that you're aware of it. First of all, you can get the document and download it, but it has to have a signature, and that has to go back as an original. So you can't send it as a PDF file or anything like that. You actually have to send it DHL or FedEx or some shipping directly to them. The problem comes in, and I know 2 people personally that this has happened to. The problem comes in if there's some mistake. Let's say it doesn't get delivered, or it goes to the wrong desk, or who knows what. Your Social Security gets shut off until you get it turned back on. And that will typically be, if you're lucky, 2 months. And from what I understand, it's kind of typically 3 months. I don't know about you, but I can't afford no income for 3 months. And so, yeah, okay, I'll get a car and that'll solve a problem. So that'd be pretty cool. It'll actually be one step easier. I won't have to go to an ATM and withdraw the cash and then go and deposit it. It'll just be there. So that's all well and good. But I'm in a bit of a panic over the idea that if there's a glitch, which I know happens, I mean, I don't know what the chances are, but it happens. And then what do I do? So I guess I got a car, I can go live in the car, right? So let you know about that. All right, next. Let's see. Oh, 2 of my associates for this new coffee project, the new coffee channel, which to you probably seems like it's stalled, and it kind of did, but it's actually back in the works. They're arriving here tomorrow. They're going to stay here for a couple days, and tomorrow, late morning, and then mid-afternoon, we're going to be filming a couple cafes. It's a man and his grown daughter. And they're actually planning on moving to Armenia from Ibagué, and they're going to be looking at some apartments and setting up some medical appointments and doing whatever they do. So that'll be pretty interesting, and that'll be the start of getting this thing rolling. The timing works out, and I said, hey, can your daughter be in these so I can get a couple of these done? And that'll give me until the first week of March, where I will be able to start doing it anyway. So that's the deal on that. All right, let's see. Number 5 on my list here. Comment. All right, when I was in Ecuador, I got a lot of trolling comments, insults, and things like that. Here in Colombia, I rarely do. You guys are pretty awesome, and I rarely do. But I did get one, and I only just saw it 2 days ago, but it was sent at least a month ago. So I'm going to read it because the guy probably thinks that, I ignored him because it was bad or something. I don't hide from bad comments. In some ways, I actually agree with the comment. But it was surprising in that it's a guy who's been watching the channel for years. But I think back when I was talking, I think it was talking about Ubers. For some reason, he got offended. I don't know why, whether I think Uber makes sense or not. I explained why it doesn't make sense in Colombia and just beware. But somehow he took offense to that personally. But then he came back, he watched another video, and I don't know, that kind of finished it off. So Mr. Sin Nombre, without name, let's see, we got here. You should rename your channel the Colombiano Wannabe Rambler. See, that part I'd probably agree with. Because, my God, you're sounding like an idiot. Give it up, fat man. I kind of agree with that, too. Seriously. But what was funny to me was, you can see on the right the video. This was the video when we were talking about the clowns. I was talking about beware of certain scammers that exist, and how to avoid them and that kind of thing. And I don't know how that offended him unless he's personal friends with one of the scammers. I really don't know. But here it is. You can see it says potentially inappropriate. What YouTube does, they put it into another tab, and I check that tab quite often. But what I never realized is if they think it's really egregious, which this isn't, I mean, I don't know why, but there's actually a link to click on that second tab with potentially dangerous comments, and you click that link, and for some reason I noticed it, or maybe they made a change, and this came up. And so it was the first time I saw it was a couple days ago, and it says 4 weeks ago, but I think it may be, I don't know, over a month. So there's that comment. Kind of made me smile in a way, but there's that. Let's see. Sebastian, thumbs up. Francisco, good morning from Upper Darby, Pennsylvania. Good morning. Okay. All right. This morning, I mentioned we had some rain. Kind of unusual here to get morning rain. It's pretty cool. Literally and figuratively, but let me show you a quick clip. That was earlier, and I'm looking out the window, and it really doesn't really look much different. But it's on a bad camera, so actually, I look out the window, and you see the way this looks, but that's the way it actually looks looking out the window. Okay. Yesterday, there was a bit of a traffic jam, and my buddy in the building next door, he sent me some updates, and let me show you. So there's a picture of the traffic jam. I actually took that one. And here's why, and he took this. You see the motorcycle that was sitting there. Motorcycle accident. And the yellow vehicle, let me see if I can I get to it? Yeah, right there. That yellow thing is an ambulance. Don't know if he died, but he was certainly injured because it took him forever to get all this taken care of. Right outside my door. All the dangers in the motorcycles. It's not in the cars. Okay, let's get on to some news. First item. Nope, let me pull up my chat. I accidentally hit it. Here we go. Feel free to chat as we go along. Just don't ask me questions till we get to the end. First item. This is where it's located. This item. More than 500 abandoned coffins with human remains found in the warehouse. There were over 200 body bags with bodies in them, and what did it say, 500 coffins. Nobody has any idea what was going on. It sounds like somebody who was supposed to be taking care of funerals got paid for it and basically just hid everything in a warehouse so he wouldn't have to actually have any expense. I don't know. It was pretty freaky, but I thought it was kind of interesting, ghoulish. So there you go. Am I still on? Yep. Make sure when the chat goes silent for a while, I make sure that I'm still broadcasting. It says I am. Okay, this next one, Viejo Armenia. Okay. Very cool. This next one is becoming a serious problem in certain areas. In Ecuador, it's absolutely a problem, and that's business extortions. It's become like the most popular crime, and businesses all over Ecuador are being extorted, protection money kind of thing. here in Colombia, they're very diligent about it. And I mentioned a few weeks back about how a crime organization had sent a woman into Montenegro to try to recruit some people and set up a little franchise. And Montenegro is pretty close to Armenia, except the neighborhood, your neighborhoods know what goes on. And after a couple of days, they reported her to the police. The police came, they arrested her, hauled her off, and pretty cool. Now this wasn't here in, well, let me show you. Let me show you. I don't pay, I report. That's what it works out to. Security and well-being for Montenegrin merchants. There's a program there, and it's reward-based, where if anybody attempts to extort you, don't pay them, turn them in. If everybody's on the same page, it'll shut it down. And that's actually pretty effective. If everybody, if you keep your eyes and ears open, if you see anything going on, if you see somebody trying to do it to your neighbor, whatever. And so I'm gratified to see that. We're not experiencing that, but there was a place, and I don't remember, it's nowhere near here. I think it's closer to Bogota, where there was, where the heck was it? It was a case of extortion in that a person was checking out a store to assess the owner of the store and determine that he had some money. They kidnapped his son, actually it was at school, and they grabbed him after school and said, pay us 20 million pesos or the son gets it, kind of thing. And he didn't have it, and he was all panicked, and he offered up 4 million, and they accepted it, and they let the son go. That's a different kind of extortion, but on the same track. The cops are all over it, and immediately. I don't think the guy even turned it in. I think the people in the neighborhood. I'm sorry, the story's kind of vague. I read it a few days ago. But those things can happen everywhere. Again, I don't want to paint it as Colombia. And right now, it's exceedingly bad in Ecuador. Well, we don't want that here. What's gratifying to me when I see these stories is how there is no silent population ignoring what's happening. People see things and they jump on it. And I live here, so I really appreciate that. Okay, next story. What's the next one? Oh, Colombia began deployment of 5G networks. Depending on where you are, you may already have it. It's all the major places. It's Cali, Bogota, Medellin, Cartagena, I think Bucaramanga and Barranquilla. And then you have all the second tier places like Santa Marta and Pereira and Manizales and Armenia. So that'll probably happen in a month or so. I don't know if it's good or bad. You have people that have all kinds of theories and you don't know what's what. I had a long conversation last night with somebody that I've known for a while, and I like them, but they're hung up on this idea of chemtrails. And I was a pilot at one point, and when you're training to be a pilot, you learn a lot of things about physics. You learn about icing is a big thing. What happens depending on the temperature and the altitude and the speed and the humidity. Icing can be a real problem, and it causes water vapor trails from airplanes, and not just jets, propeller airplanes. It depends on the circumstances. Yeah, but she's convinced that they're all chemtrails, and we're getting killed from it. Except those trails, they've been around for 100 years. As soon as airplanes were able to get up to a certain altitude, it happens. Says, yeah, but there's so much more. Yeah, because there's so many more flights. I know firsthand what it is. You wouldn't have a conspiracy of tens of thousands of pilots around the world with chemicals without not a single pilot stepping forward and saying, look what they're doing. You know, it's kind of ludicrous. It falls into the flat earth thing. But when it comes to 5G, I don't know. You know, there's all kinds of stories about that. You know, that some are pretty outrageous. That once they turn it on, it becomes a mind control thing. I don't know. Maybe with what's going on in the United States, maybe there's some truth to it. I don't know. But for better or worse, it's here. And now we're going to get to our main topic. And we're going to talk, oh no, I got one more story. Sorry. I don't care about this, but some of you do. They've discovered a new species. Well, let me show you the species. A new species of whatever that is discovered in Colombia. An ornithological jewel, Vista Nueves. Snowview? This is a bird that's never been seen anywhere. And birds that are in the same family exist here in Colombia. But there's a lot of interesting things about this if you're into it. For example, this was located, there's some famous bird guy who's discovered endless species who's now dead, but he had this estate. And coincidentally, this bird was actually spotted on this estate. It's a bird that has no tail, and its songs are different than the rest of the species in the family. Its coloring is different. It's larger than the others. So people in the bird world are really excited about this. Not every day you discover something that's never been seen before. And for me, I mean, okay, it's a bird. Cool. I like birds, especially the tasty ones. And they say that this thing is similar to a partridge. So, I don't know. How many are there? All right. I'd say that's in bad taste, but since I've never had one, I don't know. All right. Let's talk about taxis. First thing I want to say about taxis, as this came up with somebody recently, is they were unsure of the cost. And there are rules about taxi. For example, there is a minimum charge. So if you get in a taxi and it's, say, Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, and you've got the meter, and he turns the meter on, it starts off at 2,000 pesos or whatever. It's something like that. Maybe it's lower. And he drives around and it goes click, 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 and it gets up to 4,500 pesos. He stops and you get out. There's a minimum charge that no matter what it is, up into the minimum charge, you pay the full minimum charge. So that fare would be $5,000 or 5,000 pesos, $1.25. So he's not ripping you off. He's not gringo pricing you. That's the price. There are exceptions. If it's on a Sunday, there's a charge on top of that. If there's a festival or holiday, there's a charge on top of that. It's not much, but it's there. Going to the airport, there is a set charge, so the meter doesn't really apply. What else? Oh, in the evening. What is it, I think after 7? This will be on the meter. It will actually click a little bit faster. So it's a little more expensive at night, which is pretty common. And here's the photo's not very good because there was glare on the glass, but every taxi has this on the window. This is on the back window. It'll be either on the left or right. It'll be in one place. Sometimes you'll see it on the back of a seat. But you can see here the first amount is 5,000. That's the minimum. And there'll be different charges, like the 128 you see. It's like, what's the increment? Every time it clicks, it's going to go up 128. Those those four don't really matter. The minimum charge is 5,000. And down below, you'll see the add-on. The first one there is 1,100. Now, that when I came here 5 years ago, that was 500. So everything's going up. But still, it's kind of hard to complain when you're driving across town, you get out, and even with a surcharge, you pay $2.50. It's cheap transportation. Okay. So let's talk about transportation in general. Anybody there? Hello? Anybody there? No, it says you're there. I'm not used to this. You guys are, maybe I put you to sleep because, what is it? Colombiano Rambler or something? Oh, here we go. Eagle, hi from Texas. Sebastian, I've been to many countries in the world. Armenia have the best taxi rates and most trusted. I don't know if they have the best, but I have to agree with you. Trusted, absolutely. Best rate, they're great rates. And yeah. Best, I don't know. But if not, pretty damn close. Thank you for mentioning the proof of life and Colombian bank account. You're welcome. It's a biggie. It's a biggie. It's why I tell people come here on a debit card and pull your money out through the ATM. One, it's free. Two, it's not tracked that way, so it won't throw you into some category. And three, you can claim for 20 years. You can claim that you're just on extended vacation. You're on a trip. I'm retired. What the hell? What do you think I'm going to do? I'm traveling, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it keeps you out of certain bureaucracies. Okay. So transportation. Now I'm going to talk specifically about Armenia, although most, if not all of this applies throughout Colombia. Rob, falling asleep. Yeah, but for you, it's probably the drugs you take. And if I had 10 years to go before I could get down here, I'd probably be doing that too. I watch him from Connecticut. How are you doing, Kennycut? I don't know if I'm just weird, but when I was a kid, I, for some reason, couldn't say Connecticut, and I called it Kennycut. I know, it's pretty, that's rambling. Okay, ways to get around. Bus. Bus goes most everywhere. You may have to walk a couple blocks to get to a bus line. There are bus lines that you can get an app and take a look at different bus lines. All the buses say on the front, they'll have a placard of where they're going, and pretty cheap. A couple thousand pesos, and you stay on it until you're done, get off. Second thing is motoraton, motor rats. That's somebody with a little motorcycle. They're usually like 125, and they're usually barrio centered. So I don't think we have any where I am. It's a little too upscale. But if you're, you know, somewhere around minimum wage, and you're living in a barrio that's maybe stratus 2, possibly 3, nobody's wealthy around you, taxis will run you broke, and maybe you're 6 blocks from a bus line, but you're trying to get to work. There'll be somebody in that barrio that is motorcycle he will rent out, and where a taxi might charge 6,000 pesos one way, the little moto rat might charge 1,500. So you jump on the back, he runs you there. You can arrange with him, pick me up at 4 o'clock, and every day he'll go and pick you up. So that's a way to do it. It is not legal, and every once in a while, in the center of Armenia, they will have road checks and see what's up. They have impounded motorcycles for that. Okay. Then you have the so-called Uber. Now, I talked about that a lot in a particular video not too long ago, so I don't want to go into the details, but they are technically not legal in Colombia. They are permitting them sort of in Medellin and in Bogota. In Armenia, they are not. And it's, even though it's on the Uber app, it's actually not the Uber app that you would have in the US, for example. And you can find that. It's, what was it? Uber Ja, Y-A. It's Uber Y-A. And that's kind of hidden. You have to go to the about screen in the back of the app. And it took me quite a while to find it. And I knew it would be there. I was actually looking for it. And I eventually found it. It's the identical app. It goes through the same network, but because it's not legal, they couldn't run it as Uber, and the car is registered, but the driver is not. So, and you don't have the recourse that you think you do. But in Armenia, at those same road checks, if it's an Uber, they will impound the car. You're okay, but the driver's in trouble. So I don't believe in going to a place and breaking the law, and I've explained why it's a bad idea anyway. You've got taxi drivers that work to get a car and pay for the car. They got to pay for the meters. They got to pay for the license or the medallion, you would say in New York. You know, he's got all of these expenses, and the Uber driver, he's just driving dad's car. But he's charging the same, sometimes more, than what the taxi driver would. It's just very unfair. And you get an Uber and you say, well, it's recorded on the app, and except the guy who's in the car isn't. And what if something happens? And he just denied, no, it wasn't me. Prove it. So there's no responsibility. Who are you going to blame? The car? You're going to get recourse from the car? With the taxi, it's the car and the driver. So there's that. And then you have the taxi. And taxis are awesome. And they're legal. But the argument will come up when I talk to somebody, Uber versus taxi. You know, it's like, well, the Uber's more convenient. I can just go on my phone and I can just request an Uber and it'll show up. All right, well, let me show you this clip here. This is an app for taxis in Armenia. And there's actually, I think, 3 or 4 companies that will that have an app. This is Radio Taxi Candio. You will find it for Android or Apple, and download it to your phone. This is what it looks like. Those little hearts are where the cars are located. This was on the north end. This was after I scheduled it. It showed a picture of the driver. It's got his car information. It's showing basically where I'm requesting to go. Here you can save addresses, but it goes by GPS. When I called for this taxi, I didn't have to enter an address. It just came to where I was. And this is where he is versus where he's going. It shows 1 minute. That was after I ordered it. Again, here's his name. It was a Kia Picanto. There's a screen you can look at that has a record of the transaction, and it'll show an approximate amount. Now, that approximate amount is an approximate. It's calculating in if there's traffic, if there's any potential delay, because it doesn't know the future, and it's trying to give you something up front. And so you can hire a moto rat on Uber. That's true. You can. And there's actually another app also. Plus, a lot of those moto rats just have their little what's up, because they tend to know the people that are going to hire them. And so he just has a little what's up thing where people, so yeah, that's how those things can work. I'll read that other comment in a minute. So, the convenience. Oh, the price. And so at the beginning, it'll throw out an amount. I think for me, it threw out like 6,700 to 7,100 pesos probably in that range. Well, when I called, got in the car, and it was a straight shot and no traffic, so it went really quick. It was just below the minimum. So it was 5,000 pesos, but it was just below. So it was actually, I would say considerably, but in dollars, it was just coins. But it, instead of being 6,000 or 7,000, it was 5,000. Uber, because I did one, and they overcharged me because I'd done that route back and forth on taxi, and it was always the same. And it wasn't much, but it was 200 pesos more. So there was no savings, and as a matter of fact, he charged me. And what they were doing is they're setting the price, and if you're in there, they'll go ahead and charge you that price. And that's the price you're going to pay, even though it may not be what it would normally be if you were working by a meter. The taxis will work by the meter, so they throw out the estimate, but when you arrive, you're still just paying whatever is on that meter. That was just information. You can set it up to, once you arrive, to pay with a debit card or whatever if you want to. I wouldn't do that. If I'm going to need a taxi, I know I'm going to need a taxi. I always make sure I just have the cash. It's not very much. But some people love the idea, and you can do that. So the convenience doesn't really make sense. When I did this taxi, I came out and I said, okay, I'm going to use the app. I rarely use it. I'm going to use the app because I was just in a place that had a whole bunch of businesses, and I didn't really want to ask a particular business. Let me just use the app. So I go out, and I have already home address. It's already in there. So it says, where do you want to go? So I push it, and it comes up home address. Do you want this do you want a taxi? Yes. So 2 buttons. Screen comes up. As you saw, it shows the arrow, shows an approximate price, and it shows you the taxi driver, the car, his license plate number, and his medallion number. All the information comes up. So I saw him coming. I could see the plate number. It was right there. Get in. It's the guy that's in the picture. And it took 1 minute. Sometimes it'd be a little more. Sometimes, depending, taxis, sometimes you have to wait a little bit, but usually no. So talk about convenience. It doesn't get more convenient than that. And these so-called Ubers, there's not very many of them. Taxis, there's 1 billion of them. So if the 5 taxis nearest you are busy, the 6th one is just half a block away from that. So it's very convenient getting a taxi. How I do taxis, if I leave here and I want to go somewhere and it's going to be in a taxi, I'll go up to they call them porteria, but guard. So I'll walk up to that and I'll say, taxi, please. Okay. He'll call a taxi company. He'll say, okay, 2 minutes. And he'll give me the number of the placard, 0754. Okay, thank you. 2 minutes later, taxi comes rolling up to the curb looking for me. Placard is the number that was there. Because if it wasn't, I wouldn't take it. I would wait for the one that actually, a matter of courtesy, don't jump in another taxi just because he happened to see you. I'll wait for the one that I actually ordered. So I see, okay, 0754, whatever I said. I get in, that taxi takes me. So let's say I'm going to the coffee meeting. So the coffee meeting is all done. I'll go up to the people at the counter and I say, taxi, please. They'll call a taxi and they'll say, okay, the number is 2739. Okay, thank you. I'll go out on the curb and I'll look for 2739. It's taxis are not inconvenient. And even if I didn't do that, I could walk out on the curb and hail a taxi, usually even quicker. It's just, you never know. And I don't want to stand out there waving taxis and it goes by and they have tinted windows. And then I notice when it's next to me that it's already got people in it. It's like, okay, I just waved down a taxi that was full. Feels stupid. So, but you can do that. So if you're somewhere in the city and you don't want to ask somebody, you walk out on the street and wave down a taxi. Maybe the first couple are busy, but the third one will stop. And there's more taxis on the street than anything else. So it's hardly inconvenient. And you got 3 different ways to get a taxi. You have one way to get an Uber. There's nowhere near as many. And Moto Raton, it's even more difficult unless it's something you've planned out. But I don't know. I don't want to. Who wants to ride on the bitch seat of a little 125 motorcycle? I mean, it's okay. So, you saving better than half the price, but of course, you can always walk to where you're going. All right. That's what I got on taxis. How are we doing for time? Right on time. All right, let me see. I had this comment. Let's see. I'm listening. Taxi price very cheap compared with Uber in Dallas. Oh, well, there is no compare. Here, everything goes very expensive from utilities to rent, gas. People are complaining. Minimum wage in Texas is $15. Yeah, I've said this. You guys probably know, but the economy here is equivalent, but on a different scale. So it's like 1 to 4. If something here costs $1, it'll cost $4 in the United States. Now, depending on what it is, there can be variations. It could be 15 times more, and it could be some import item might even be a little bit more here. But in general, for food and rent, utilities, and things like that, the scale is about 1 to 4. Since I am the only gringo in Socorro, all the drivers know Don Tomas. When I want a taxi at my pad, I just send a pic of the front of my building. Done. 6,000 anywhere within Socorro. Cool. So the minimum there is 6,000. And that makes sense because it's kind of hilly. And the tax, and like in Manizales, it was the same. The minimum was higher and the rate was more because they go through way more brake pads. There's more servicing required. It's harder on the taxis when they're going up and down these hills. You come to Armenia, one of the reasons it's cheaper here is it's relatively flat. I mean, we have a few hills here and there, but it's mostly pretty flat. And that makes for cheaper taxis because it requires less maintenance. Yeah, thanks for that info, and it made me think of that. So it's actually a good point to know why there would be a difference if you visit Manizales as compared to Armenia. It's like, well, you're only 25 miles as a crow flies. Why would there be a difference? Well, that's why. It was, I hesitate to say because I might get it wrong, but when I lived there, then came to Armenia, I think I had figured out it was about a 50% greater cost in Manizales than here, is what it worked out to be. All right. Let's make it official. It's Q&A time. It's time to start asking your questions. Remember, 4 question marks first, then ask the question. All right, we got any questions? Let's see, we already did the Super Bowl, so we don't have to rush off for that. Bills won't be playing for a while, so I don't have to worry about that. My guests aren't coming until, they say 8:30 in the morning from Ibagué, so I don't have to worry about that today. I don't have to worry about the rain because I actually don't plan on going out today. How many taxi drivers can communicate a little bit of English? Surprisingly, where very few people speak English, taxi drivers, I don't know the percentage. A fair number of them will surprisingly know some English, or at the very least, they understand your accent. That's one of the biggest barriers of communication, is if they are tuned into your accent, it's a lot easier to communicate in either language. So that's yeah, that's a pretty good point. And also, Mr. Ben next door with his alias, he says, and this is true, it is a great place to practice your Spanish. They want that kind of interaction. A lot of them have been like to New York, maybe even drove a taxi there for a little while. So you run into a fair amount that spent some time in the US. By proportion, it's probably the most English familiar group of all of Armenia. So yeah, so there's that. So you get in, you can practice your Spanish. If you screw up, he'll help you with it. I get in, I don't run into many English speakers. When I do, I immediately default to English because I'm grateful I get to speak it. Otherwise, it's just Sundays. And then I forget English words. But on a day-to-day, I just automatically use Spanish. And it's interesting, you get in a taxi cab and you use Spanish, but you have an accent. He knows that, you know, the minute you open your mouth that you're not from here. And he'll reply in English. Not always, but sometimes this happens. And so I'll speak Spanish, he'll speak English. He's getting a kick out of it and getting to maybe practice something. So it's a fun thing, actually. It's when I go out, that portion of my day is usually a bit of my entertainment. Owen, what happened to the car you had a few years ago? It's on my personal channel. I did an entire explanation, embarrassment and all, about the mistakes that I made along the way. And you can go there and you can watch it. I think it's about a half an hour long. What do you think about buying land in Colombia? Okay. Here's the thing. Buying land in Colombia is safe. In Ecuador, it wasn't because of the process. You could buy your land and 5 years ago, somebody could come and put a claim on it. It's not like that here. Here, it's you buy it, it's secure, you own it. That's just how it is. And you can own land. So that part of it's good. However, it's difficult to sell, and you could sit on something for quite a while. And unless you're just independently wealthy and it doesn't matter, I would strongly suggest, if you're just moving here, that you don't consider buying land, buy a condo. You don't consider any of that for a minimum 6 months, probably a year. It takes a while to really understand certain areas. And you don't want to buy something because it just seems, oh, great, it seems perfect and whatever. And then you get there and you find out there's reasons that you absolutely hate it. And now you're stuck with it. And you don't know, and even if you sell it, maybe you're going to take a loss. So you know, if you buy it, you want it to be, it doesn't really matter if it's going to be your place. But if it's a place that has issues and you're not happy with it, for example, maybe you buy a condo and you've got this beautiful view of the mountains and you're watching the sunrise, and it's got this amazing balcony patio thing, and you just love it. But what you didn't know, and you find out 3 months later, is that somebody got a permit to put a high-rise smack in front of you, and for the rest of your life, you're going to be staring at that wall instead of that beautiful view. It takes a little while to understand certain things. You know, are there chickens? Are there dogs? If you're out in the country, I mean, what's the access? Okay, I got this beautiful little farm. What I didn't know is 6 months out of the year, the road's not passable. You know, so don't rush some purchase like that. Take your time to be sure. What's the APR for the car loan? Oh God, it was, it's high here. Oh, very cool. Out the window, I'm seeing 3 big old hang gliders, just kind of barely moving, hanging in the air. There's a place on the mountain nearby that does that, but I don't usually catch them, and there they are. Anyway, savings, you can get 10-15%, which means if you get a loan, it's going to be high. I believe it was 1.25 a month. I think it was. Honestly, that didn't really concern me because their tax is low, the price of the cars are very low. If you take it as a package, forget, okay, well, this is really high. Yeah, but this is really low. If you take it as a package, the cost of actually getting into a brand new car, if that's the way I went, I would prefer to go use a couple years. But a brand new car, delivered, and it's going to cost you what was it, like $900,000 a month for I think 4 or 5 years. I don't remember exactly now. So that price overall, it's like, it's hard to argue. You know, you're paying $15,000 for a brand new car with a 5-year warranty. Hard to complain. But it's a good question. I think it was 1.25. I wasn't really prepared to talk on the details. I didn't look at that for a while. I'm just revisiting it now because I had to schedule out a couple rental cars over the next month or so. And it just blew me away on the price. And there's a couple sources, and I checked it, and they've more than doubled. And I'm not very happy about it. All right. Good idea to practice Spanish with the taxi. Absolutely. Have you heard anything about ending the Estrada system? No. I'll look that up. It won't affect me. It's really a positive for people in Stratus 1 and 2. They get a little bit of a subsidy without it going through the government. And I would prefer that kind of system. And it's such a relatively small amount from my standpoint. It's almost laughable how little it is. But when it's transferred down to the low end with the expenses that they have, it's meaningful. So I actually like the system. I've heard nothing, and I read headlines every day. I've read nothing about it. So I'll see what I can find. What's the average price of a 2-bed condo in my building? I have no idea in my building. Are you talking about buying or renting? Condos are getting, like everything, it's getting up there. It used to be for an average size place in a decent building, about 200,000, even less. Now I'm seeing quite a few of the newer ones going up and around the 200 million. I'm seeing them more like 400 million. But you can still find nice houses in a reasonable barrio, 2-story, square feet, maybe about 12 to 1,500 square feet for $35,000-$35,000. It's still inexpensive, and property tax here is almost laughable. Have you had any personal issues with Social Security while living in Ecuador or Colombia? I did. If you remember, shortly after I moved to Colombia for about 6 months, I was living. I talked about money problems and having an appreciation for income a lot back then. I don't know if I ever talked about the extent of it, but I went for 6 months without receiving any income anywhere. And it was all based on cash that I had saved. And it was dwindling. As a matter of fact, I was down to nothing but a bag of rice before it got fixed. It was tough times. That's back when I did the dating a video, and I couldn't invite anybody out, and I was splurging to buy a cup of coffee at a cheap place. And so they would come to me, and it would cost me a cup of coffee because they must have thought what a cheapskate he is. But I couldn't afford to do otherwise. And it was for a video anyway. But yeah, it was tough times. And so I'm sensitive. I'm sensitive to those things. I'm very cautious with money these days, and I actually am a bit fearful about doing a direct deposit because I don't ever want to experience that situation again. So anyway. Turtle, he's using his, that's either a copy and paste or, okay, a vehicle for 50 million for 36 months is initial down payment of 0 and a monthly payment of 1,700,000. Yeah, and it's one of those things you can get 1 year, 2 year, they'll go up to 7 years financing. Just like the US, sooner you pay it, the better it is, but you're still going to have bigger payments. Is it new or used? Here right now, new cars, it's tempting to go in that direction because there are so many programs right now that will kick in money to your payments, and there's all kinds, just like in the US, there's all kinds of enticements because, when car sales are down, they want to move inventory. And so what I was looking at, the one in particular, it was under a million a month. It was 900 and something. And I believe it was 4 years. And it was around that amount, but there was some kind of special deal with it. So let's see what else we got here. I pay 200,000 for 24 hours for rental car. It's a little expensive. Yeah, well, it is expensive because those same cars were half that not so long ago. But if you look, you will also find that there's add-on charges, and you may not be aware. Like there'll be an add-on car wash. There will be where it used to cover. Okay, you got liability insurance, then you have collision insurance. Well, here it's similar, different names. So you get the basic coverage. It doesn't really take care of you, but it covers any responsibility for somebody else. But you would still be stuck with the repair on the car. Or you could opt for the collision, full coverage, get in an accident, you walk away, that's the end of it. Well, it used to be they included the full coverage. Now they don't. And they will give you the car with the minimum, but if something happens, you could owe up to the price of a car. If it got totaled, you would be responsible for that. And I don't want to be in that situation. So then you can opt to buy the insurance, but now you're adding a considerable more to it. And to you, from your economy, you may look at it and say, well, that's cheap. That's no different than the US. Remember, we're on a 1 to 4. So, the rental car should be a fourth of what it is in the US. Well, now it's pretty much the same. It's really up there. And I'm not rich, I'm living on a relatively low Social Security, and that puts a big dent. Where can I find your personal channel? Send me an email. There, because I can't remember. What is it? Sane in Colombia. Sane as in not insane. Sane in Colombia is the YouTube channel. That's what it is. Bank Colombia. Yeah, I didn't actually talk to the bank on any of this. I talked to various car dealers. Is that true? Because if you go through Bank Colombia, and I'm not saying not to, but if you do go through Bank Colombia, you don't get all those dealer incentives by going through them, because you go to a dealer, they have their own finance company, like GM Credit or whatever it was called, I forget what it was called. So they have their own. And so they can give you a finance rate of 2% instead of 15%. And they could give you 2 million pesos off or whatever the program is. And so you can save considerable money by using, what they have to offer. Is that true? Retirement visa changed from 3 years to 1 year. Then when renew, charge the same amount. Yes and no. It's always been a maximum of 3 years. So it'd be 1, 2, or 3 years. Pre-COVID, you automatically got 3 years unless there was some particular issue. Now, because it's based on the healthcare you carry, your first one is going to be at 1 year. Because the first one you get is going to be based on essentially traveler's insurance. So you come here, you got 3 months of traveler's insurance. You could have 1 year or 3 months, doesn't matter. You're only going to get the 1 year visa. So just get the 3 months. Then once you get here, you get your cedula, you go sign up for the insurance here in Colombia, and you're good to go. You'll save yourself a lot of money too. Then when you go to get your next visa a year later, it's still an option of 1, 2, or 3, and it'll depend on different things. It's become variable. Now, when I got my first one, it was 3 years, it was pre-COVID. When I got my second one, it was after COVID, but I'd already been living here, and they just gave me 3 years again. Well, now I'm on my resident visa, and then you get, 5 years, and then you can roll into citizenship. So hopefully I'm on my last visa, but you never know. But that's how that works. It's not that they changed it from 3 years to 1 year, and nothing is sure. The law always was 1 to 3 years at the discretion of the agent who is processing your paperwork. Not a visa agent or a lawyer, but the person, at the consulate or whatever it is here in Colombia where they actually issue the visas. So it's their discretion. And one of the things they're doing now is using the healthcare thing as a discretion. There's probably some other categories. I've met people that got 1 year on their second visa, and also I've met people, or I know people that got 3 years on their second visa. There was one guy who got 2 years on his first visa when everybody else was getting 1. So it'll be 1, 2, or 3. And yes, of course, it's the same amount because you're filing for a visa regardless of whatever time that is. And you could say, well, it sucks. Well, it does suck. But on the other hand, it's $500. And one of the things is living here, would I sacrifice $500 over the course of a year for the benefit of living here, considering cost savings, the quality of life? Yeah, in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Okay. Do we have anything else? How are we doing for time? Holy crap. Well, you said I was a rambler. I've been rambling. All right. I guess we're going to end it here today. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the contribution, Jerry, Juka. It's certainly appreciated. Really going to use this next week. You guys will see in about 2 weeks. You'll begin to see the work that's going to be taking place starting tomorrow. And I guess that's it. If anybody is willing to do an interview over the internet, let me know. Again, here's the email. You see, and I have to keep hammering this home because I keep getting harassed about not doing more interviews. It's because nobody wants to do them. So there's that. And is there anything else? Eagle, thanks for the information. You're most welcome. And I think that's it. Okay, so we're going to move on. Hope you have a great day, rest of February, rest of your life, and see you next Sunday. Ciao.